This is Paul Schmid. Welcome to the Pursuit Zone. After a decade of being distracted by a career, a relationship, and homeownership, Loretta Henderson decided to stop dreaming about adventure and to start living it. She left Alaska at age 36 to begin cycling around the world. Starting in the United Kingdom, she left the bike shop on a Thorn Raven without a map and without any cycling experience. 4 years later, she has pedaled across 30 countries on 5 continents and records her adventures at www.scalatitude.com. Loretta Henderson, welcome to the Pursuit Zone.
Oh, well, thank you for thank you for doing this.
Loretta, how did you end up in Alaska?
I applied for a job for the school district in Alaska, and the job pretty much was that I was to stay for 4 months till the kids graduated. I pretty much found wilderness heaven, and I ended up staying 9 years.
So what exactly were you doing there? What kind of teaching?
I didn't do teaching. My job I became a grant manager, a community programs grant manager. I worked for the school, and then eventually I wanted to build myself a cabin, and I needed some more money. So I started operating machinery, actually, forklifts, excavators, bulldozers, and earned enough money to buy land and pay for my little circular cabin that I built.
Did you have to go to school to learn the heavy equipment?
No, actually, it was sort of just hands-on. It all started with a forklift, and from there, I just, on the job, did all right at it, and I just got different opportunities, and it worked out okay.
Tell me about this cabin that you built.
I ended up building a 2-story circular cabin with solar electricity and wood heating. And I worked for the school district, but I took different jobs in order to learn those kind of skills. All of those things sort of contributed to how I ended up cycling around the world. Just lots of hands-on learning. Lots of things have changed since I started with that bike, and it's been good. I've learned a lot.
So you spent 9 years in Alaska, and somewhere along the line you started thinking about taking this biking trip. When did you start thinking about it? How long were you thinking about it before you finally made the decision to go do it?
Funny enough, I spent years pretty much obsessing over a book called the Adventure Cycle Touring book. And the entire time that I was building that house, I was just flipping through that book. It got all dog-eared, and what happened was, when I threw that last nail into that house, everything in me was like, wow, okay. It turned out I didn't really want to live in it. And I waited a year, and I realized that what I wanted to do was build it, and I didn't necessarily want to live in it, and very much felt like I was done living up north in Alaska in the Arctic. And so I started thinking, oh, well, what else do I want to do? And I eventually flew to England and bought a bike, and I named it Pandemic, the Magic Bicycle, because the bird flu was going around at the time, and because I'd never cycled and I hadn't traveled very much, I sarcastically named it Pandemic, the Magic Bicycle, with the hopes of spreading fearlessly across the world. And it was supposed to be a short summer trip to try out this new thing, bicycle touring, and I just discovered that I absolutely loved it, and sold the cabin, with the cabin sold, and basically took that money and started cycling around the world. And since then, I went England through Wales to Ireland, and then pretty much was like, okay, this is working out all right. I guess I'll go to where I've always really, really wanted to go, which was Asia. So I cycled from Bangkok to Mongolia, and then I went home to see family and thought, well, my life really can't be about traveling. That lasted maybe 2 months, and I thought, well, maybe at this point I'll just connect the dots and see if I can't just maybe cycle around the world kind of thing. And so I've been coming west across the world from New Zealand ever since. New Zealand, through Asia, through the Middle East, and then the length of Africa. And then I sailed to South America, and that's where I am now. I am talking to you from Brazil. I sailed here from Namibia, Africa.
Now, I would think the logical thing might be to start in Alaska and then cycle down to South America. Why start in the United Kingdom?
You know, in that book, there was a bicycle. There was a bunch of bikes in that book. But because I'd spent so long, like, learning how to build a house, and I was also fixing friends' cars, just easy things like spark plugs and stuff. I pretty much thought to myself, okay, I don't want to deal with tools anymore. I can do those things, but I'm not very good at them. And so I thought, well, okay, let's see. And I ended up just basically Googling low maintenance bicycle or something like that. And this bike came up that was also in the book. And I went to England, I bought it, and just started from there.
What was that like, going into the shop and talking to those guys and telling them what you were going to do and getting the bike?
Well, that bike shop was kind of funny. You know, one of the guys actually asked me, "Are you a real cyclist?" and I thought, no, I'm not a real cyclist at all. I'd never cycled anywhere. I'm like, I thought I would just try, kind of thing. And so I just left the bike shop and gave it a shot. And I can tell at the start, you know, people say to me, like, what did you think of England? You know, how was Wales? And I always say, I have no idea. I was far too busy going, ow, 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 like every step of the way.
So before you got started, I mean, did you have any fears going into it?
You know, I mean, obvious fears of trying something new, but, you know, I was just so excited to start a new chapter in my life that I just don't think it really mattered. I'd been in Alaska a really long time. You know, at 9 years, it's a long time to be living in the Arctic, and I was truly just so excited about just jumping into something new that I don't think there was I don't think the fear was really too overwhelming. It was just really, really exciting.
All right, so you've been to 31 countries now. There's a huge amount of stuff you could talk about. Highlight for me some of the 2 or 3 of the best countries that you cycled through and why you think it was the best experience.
Yeah, some of my favorite places, Mongolia. Basically in Mongolia, nomadic people who are living in yurts, they pretty much invented camping and the outdoor lifestyle. And when you show up on a bicycle, you're absolutely in the club. And it's just a whole lot of fun. I got to spend some time with a Siberian shaman, which was really amazing, in a really, really remote area of Mongolia. And the entire time I was there, it was just a really great experience. And then another favorite place of mine is Pakistan. The people there are just so amazingly kind. The Karakoram Highway, the mountains, that particular road is just mind-blowingly beautiful. Most mountain areas build their roads like around the mountains. The Karakoram Highway was built literally through the mountains, so you have glaciers touching the road. It's like hiking without even leaving the main road, and the people just absolutely wonderful.
Is that safe to travel on?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Obviously there's some areas of Pakistan that, probably wouldn't be best for cycle touring, but it's only a really small area. The Karakoram Highway mountains are, I cycled there from China. And yeah, for the most part, it's just such a remote, rural area, and the people are just absolutely amazing.
Any other countries? Some of your favorites?
Oh, there's just so many great things about everywhere. I got this I cycle toured the mountains of India. I had the greatest opportunity to meet the Dalai Lama. That's probably a huge, huge highlight. So that was great too. The highest mountain pass there is at 5,435 meters. That's 1,700 something feet. And I was, a lot of the high mountain areas, you end up, camping under prayer flags and just beautiful, beautiful scenery.
Let's go back to the Dalai Lama story. How did you meet the Dalai Lama?
Yeah, and obviously Africa as well. A friend of mine who traveled the world for 8 years on a bicycle ended up cycling there, and she now works for the Tibetan government as a geologist. There was a service going on with the Dalai Lama there, and we went. He was, maybe an arm's length away. He leaned over and he blessed the Tibetan woman with her hands clasped together on my right, and then the man on my left, and I was just sitting there in absolute awe. Yeah, it was just really great. And then obviously Africa too. I've cycled with, all sorts of animals and whatnot, which is fun. So in Africa, it's always very exciting because I ended up cycling with, camels in Sudan and zebras in Zambia and elephants in Botswana. And it's all just great fun. And I love taking photos. It's taken me all this time on the road to develop my love of photography. So my, I have a camera carnival gallery on my website, scholatitude.com, and I just absolutely have some really nice memories that I was able to capture through those experiences.
Yeah, I noticed your photographs were getting better as time went on. You've got some really nice photographs up there. Yeah,
it's great fun, and when I left Africa, I met someone, and she said something so funny, and she's so true. She kept saying, "Pixels are free," and I thought, oh, she's so right. I spend an awful lot of time taking photos, and it also means that I'm able to travel on a very, very small budget, about $10 a day for most areas. Of course, every country is very different, but she's so right. Pixels are free, and if you love photography, what a great way to spend the time without spending any money.
Tell me about the countries that gave you the most challenges.
I cycled in hijab across Iran through the Middle East. And it was, so hot. And, it was just so hot. And again, the people are just lovely, but I was all wrapped up in my hijab scarf and completely covered up and absolutely sweating on the inside. And yeah, it was quite an adventure. And at one point I even got my headscarf stuck on a tree, and there's mandatory headscarf laws in Iran, so I got the whole head contraption stuck on a tree. It all came flying off, and I retreat, my headscarf arbor work going on, getting the thing out of the tree, and the whole dress thing was definitely quite an adventure. I actually love to write, so I kept writing about those experiences, dressed like a ballerina at a Texas rodeo. I continue my quest through Iran, But honestly, my little laptop that I travel with, I've named it Prozac, because writing until I laugh will pretty much keep me going. And that's what I do a lot of the time when those challenges come my way.
So what's changed as far as the way that you travel from when you started to now?
Budget-wise, I think once you get the hang of it, things get, you get to be more and more frugal, and you sort of start to figure out how to do that just to reduce costs and just, general comfortability as well. When I first entered Africa, through Egypt and most of Sudan, I ended up cycling in a sandstorm, but the sandstorm was behind me. So I ended up just cycling in the most phenomenal wind I'd ever been at. And normally I cycle about 100 kilometers, 66 miles a day. But during those days I was, up to double that, if not more. So I think over time, too, things just get more and more exciting.
By the sound of your voice, I mean, you sound super upbeat. Do you have any issues keeping up your motivation at all?
No, I mean, there's obviously, good days and bad days and whatnot, but I really, I'm not sure. Writing until I laugh will literally keep me going. I'm laughing most of the time. I mean, so much that happens, whether it's on a bike or traveling in life, it's all just, just take it with a grain of salt. It just pretty much makes me laugh.
How about physically? How are you holding up?
Well, at the start, since I spent so much of my time going, ow, 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 in such tremendous pain and lying down on hills on the grass at the top. And, I used to lie down at the top of the hills, like on the grass, and just think to myself, what do those lunatics in that travel book that I've been reading? What are those lunatics? They're gotta be complete, like, just maniacs, I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? So now it's a little bit more comfortable. Obviously climate in Africa can be like quite an issue. And I'm not sure if you follow Twitter, but I was sending out all sorts of crazy tweets about how much I was sweating, like constantly. Like every day I'm like, oh, I'm like sweating like a hooker on a Saturday night, The next day I'm like sweating. And so obviously climate is kind of a big deal. But yeah, so for the most part, I think I'm all right. I definitely have had, probably more, stomach funk and whatever else, and at this point, I think my stomach's probably pretty tough. I've eaten like, I've eaten like chicken head soup and and I don't know, scorpions, and I've eaten all sorts of random things, which is actually kind of funny because I did spend 10 years as a vegetarian, but now I pretty much just eat everything that comes my way.
Do you think it's possible to cycle around the world and be a picky eater?
Well, it certainly makes things a lot easier when you genuinely just love everything. If you're a really, really picky eater in a lot of the area, you'd be a bit hungry, but I'm sure it's possible. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, anything's really possible, right? So yeah, I'm sure it's possible, but I think it would definitely make it more challenging. For months and months, a lot of the areas in Africa, in the middle of Africa, the food is basically like beans, rice, and that's pretty much it. So I've definitely got really skinny at one point, but then if I end up in a more tourist area, I just end up eating and eating and eating, and the weight doesn't really stay off very long. Although, I'm not a very big person anyway, so weight's never really been a big issue. I'm 5'1" 3/4, about 100 pounds soaking wet. I've never been the biggest kid in the class, but for the most part, I guess if you're really, really picky, I guess you just end up a little skinny and then have to go into more tourist areas when there's more options and then just fatten back up again.
How's your bike been holding up?
Oh, Pandemic the Magic Bicycle is it's great. It's great. I've had to fix a few things, obviously, but for the most part, I have a roll-off gear system, which is pretty much like a fancy, it's like a clutch for a bicycle. It's an internal gear hub, which pretty much makes gear shifting, and it's pretty much flawless. So in that respect, I am really lucky. At the very start, when I did that whole Google low maintenance bicycle thing, it worked out okay. My wheel was a little expensive at the start, but definitely worth it because I don't know what it is, 2/3 or whatever it is around the world. And maintenance-wise, it's been kind of minimal. And if something does fix, I just sort of just give it a shot. I mean, I'm not the best at fixing things, but I can get it fixed. And someone actually gave me a compliment. They said, well, for someone who's always just guessing, you do okay fixing that thing. And it's not too hard to muster up help if that does happen. I put my computer on Skype video, like on the bicycle, and called some people and been like, okay, I fixed it, but it didn't work. What do I do? And then I just sort of muster up some help. But bike's good and strong. Missing quite a few chips of paint, but other than that, the bike's pretty good.
Tell me about the sailing part of your adventure.
Oh, well, if I ever decide to get on a boat like that again, with 3 smelly boys in their underwear for 6 long weeks, please feel free to hit me over the head with a large hammer. It was, I made it, but and I learned a lot. I wanted to learn to sail, and I'm really grateful for the experience. But I've never had to swallow back my every thought more my entire life for so long, and I was just really, really happy to get back to the bike. But in terms of like travel dreams, kind of have this far-fetched idea that I wanted to cycle around the world and then at some point either build a boat or fix up a boat and then go again on water. And so as I've been cycling on land, I've been trying to learn to sail. And so spending that many hours out on the ocean sailing, I learned quite a bit. So yeah, I'm pretty grateful. I actually wrote an essay about this, and basically about Captain Banana Hammock. That's what I named him. No holds barred account of Captain Banana Hammock and his sailing vessel. So I pretty much just wrote it out the whole time and had some fun. What I wrote was fun. That was fun.
That must be a new post because I don't think I've read that one.
No, it's too long. It's more like a couple chapters of like a book length, and so it's actually not on the internet. If my journal that I've kept up with, that's pretty much not on the internet, if that at some point does become a book or something, it will definitely be included.
So even after the 6 weeks of sailing, do you still want to do the round the world sailing thing as a potential future adventure?
Yeah, I do want to explore the world on water, for sure. I'm in Brazil, but I ran into a visa problem, and so I've decided to reroute, and I'm actually going to fly down to Argentina, and it's their winter next week, and I'm going to winter cycle tour Argentina back to Alaska, and one of my biggest reasons for doing that is down in Chile. If you look at a map of Chile, all those little islands, they'll be full of ice, and they send boats through there. And so I'm going to go on local boats through the ice down there, and I'm very excited. So at some point later on in life, some kind of vessel, whether it's sailing or rowboat, maybe pedal boat. I'm not sure, but I have designs for a pedal boat, and I've been talking to some people about that. And so that's one idea. I don't know if we'll ever become, ever make it real, but that's one idea for the future.
So, okay, let me ask this question. For people that want to go on some type of a travel adventure and they think that they'll start a blog and maybe make some money from the blogging part of it, what's your experience with that? Is that possible to do?
Oh, I'm sure there's somebody out there making money from it. Not me. And that's okay. I started something called the WOW Women on Wheels, which is a celebration of solo female bicycle touring. About a year into the trip, I had not met any other solo female travelers on bicycles. And I pretty much was thinking, I'm like, there's got to be more people like me out here. And so I just sort of put it out there. And what's happened now, I think it's only been 2 years, is there's a small community that's been built. I think there's about 70 women who I'm in contact with who are all solo female travelers. And we're together on the WOW Women on Wheels wall. And it's sort of our way of saying, yes, this is indeed possible if this is what you want to do. Because all those years ago when I would Google things, I couldn't find anyone of women doing this. But now you can. You'll find the WOW Women on Wheels on my webpage. And so, yeah, money-wise, nah. No, not at all. But People write me about trip planning and routes and concerns and free camping questions because they want to do things like this, and that's the entire point of the WOW Wall, and just to build a network to encourage others to do it. But like money-wise, nah. And to be honest, for women's bicycle touring, that WOW Wall, because there's so many of us now. It comes up on the first page of Google. It's just not something that's it's not really with the intention of making any money.
I'm curious about one thing, and that is you're a Canadian citizen. Is that correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Cobourg, Ontario, and I went to the University of Western Ontario. I'm a little bit of a border jumper, and that's how I ended up in Alaska for 9 years. But yeah, I'm Canadian. I spent it's half or most of my life in Canada.
The question I want to ask, and because if I was to do what you were doing, I would have to budget about $400 a month to pay for health insurance. Does being Canadian get you out of having to do that?
That's a phenomenal question, and let's hope my dad doesn't hear the podcast. But no, what I've done, I believe I am actually not sure. At the time when I left Alaska, because the school district position was contract-based, it was a grant manager, I didn't have health insurance then, and if I were to do it over again, I certainly would. But in the case of health things, I think if it was really, really disastrous, I think Canada does help with that. But what I've done, because I have had, a few issues, I have cash paid, and it hasn't been any big deal. And that's just that's what's happened. And in some areas, like when I sailed into St. Helena, because St. Helena, the island that's in the South Atlantic, there is no airplane access. It's boat access only. They wanted you to have a St. Helena policy, and so I opened one up. And St. Helena is a British island, so I opened one up for St. Helena as well as the next stop. And so in instances like that, I just would buy a policy.
Tell me about the bicycle ambulances for rural Africa that you're working on raising funds for.
Yeah, that was a kind of like a special project, and it met its goals, which was great. And I ended up donating the money to a family in Namibia. What I did was I sold T-shirts pretty much, and I didn't want to raise. I wasn't. It was literally an open-close, short-time project. So I sold T-shirts, raised as much money as I could, which was a very small amount, and ended up sponsoring a child for an educational project. So I donated like almost $500, which again isn't a lot, but it was a certainly fun project. I was writing a lot of articles about T-shirts and really just trying to network it, and it worked out okay. And again, in retrospect, if I, started this whole thing over again, then maybe I would have a more fundraiser type of trip for the entire duration. But since, when I started, I didn't have Facebook, Twitter, webpage. I hardly checked my email, nor was I a cyclist, and I had no plan. And now all these years later, I pretty much have networked through WOW Women on Wheels. I get to do things like this and talk to you. And I did raise that $500. So again, not a lot. But the idea with the Bicycle Ambulance Project is a really good multiple country organization. They're in lots of places in rural Africa, and it just expanded to Madagascar, and I think it just extended. The last area that was open was Madagascar. They are basically taking donated bicycles through different organizations and building modified carts or stretchers and using them for transportation to get to health facilities. And the entire project is it's all community developed pretty much. So I cycled to, it was south of the capital, I cycled there, and I met Joyce and Rihanna, and I met all these great people. I got to spend some time camped there, visited their soup kitchen, their bike shop, saw a lot of the things that the bike, and what they do is they fix up these bicycles, and they fix up these bicycles and sell them to the community for very low costs, and they're putting their money back into a soup kitchen. And then also one of their branches is doing the bicycle ambulances in areas that are even more rural. So it was definitely a really, really a great fun and really great people that I met.
What's next for you?
Oh, trying to finish cycling around the world from Argentina and then back up to northern Canada and then probably Alaska. And at that point, not sure, maybe a new chapter after that.
There is one thing I'm kind of curious about. Let's put it this way. There's a lot of people probably out there that are sitting on the fence about an adventure like this. And I know the biggest hang up for me is thinking about retirement and going, man, if I do this now, that could totally screw up my retirement later. Will I ever be able to get back into the workforce and make the money I was making before? Do you have a message for people that are on the fence like that?
Oh, no, but boy, do I wish I did. I also have those concerns. And all I ever think is, when I get to be 80 years old and I look back on my life, I want to say that I did something with my time. And for me anyway, I don't think what I'm ever going to remember is working, ever. I think what I'm gonna, or maybe it's just because I had the wrong job, but I think when I look back on my life, what I'm going to remember is all of these traveling experiences and trying to cycle around the world. But I definitely have those worries, and I just hope it works out later.
I hope it does too. Loretta, how can people get a hold of you if they want to?
Through my website, skelatitude.com. I'm also Loretta Henderson on Facebook, and I'm Skelatitude on Twitter, or through anyone through the Wow Women on Wheels wall, and or email's good too. I think I'm fairly accessible. I'm not sure, but you'll find me on the internet somewhere.
Well, Loretta Henderson, thank you for talking to me today, and good luck on your cycling, the completion of your journey from Argentina to Alaska. I wish you well and stay safe.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Recorded August 5th, 2013. For more great podcasts, visit thepursuitzone.com.